Lesbian means attracted to female sex typical traits.
Hey, Elliot Roger here.
You would still be a lesbian if you were with a trans woman. Because
how would I still be a lesbian if they're a male?
Look. Most people that are trans don't have gender dysphoria.
Okay, Mike, you keep thinking that, buddy, I guess, but
Okay.
See way he smiles because the other guy quit. That means he won.
We're not
By adding males to homosexual lesbian, you're erasing what it means to be a female lesbian. We fought for those rights.
No one's going to tell me that I'm homophobic. I'm sorry.
Can I just say, oh, well, based on my definition of the word fuckwit, that's complimentary, actually, and you should be glad that I'm calling you a fuckwit. I don't know, bro.
If that's what you want to think it is, then fine, but that's
what do you mean, not the gaslighting? What do you mean? What else is lesbian? If it doesn't mean that I'm attracted to my own bitch.
Yes, silly woman. Now I'm going to tell you what lesbian actually means as a man.
I'm not a man because I have a pee-pee.
No. Trans ally debate bros are kind of one of my things. I need to try and talk to more of these people. The only one I've spoken to is Alec Gunter, and that went hilariously well, obviously. But yeah, let's have a look. So, debates are trans women. I'll see if I can find where they start.
What's happening, my guy?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Trans woman or woman? I wanna just ask you the age-old question. What is a woman?
It's a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits.
Well, that's
Yeah, I think this is like stupid, to be honest. A gender identity that aligns with female typical traits. So like, what's a female then? What does it mean to be female typical? We're making woman from an objective term, that being an adult human female, into a very subjective term that's going to really depend on the person observing. And that's the thing they don't seem to engage with very often that I hear, is that part of gender is like how you're perceived. It's how others see you. Like, it's a social thing. It kind of has to be, right?
circular. What can you define the word woman?
I just did.
No, you didn't. You give me a circular answer. I need a definition.
So let's listen. Woman is a gender identity.
No, that's circular.
Hold on.
But that's circular answer. You have to define it.
Hold on, sir. Let's listen to the full definition.
No, but you're not defining it. I won't listen to a non-definition. I asked you the question. I asked you to define it. You're giving me a circular answer. Define what a woman is.
A gender identity that aligns with female typical traits.
Yeah, but that's a circular answer. That's not actually defining what a woman is it? What is a woman?
Circular.
No, it is circular because you haven't given me a definition on what a woman is.
I just did.
Yeah, it's very common that these people end up just spouting like sexist tropes.
It's a
No, you didn't. You know,
it's a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits.
No, that's not. That's a circular answer.
Can
That's
you point
not.
out the circularity?
No, but you won't give me a definition, which is what I'm asking you for. How do you define what a woman is?
I think the guy calling, like, he's just going round and round. I don't know that it's necessarily circular, but it invites a hell of a lot more questions. You know what I mean? He looks faded, yeah, a little bit.
It's a gender identity that aligns with female typical.
Because he can just say the same thing over and over. Like, start drilling down, start asking, well, what are female-specific traits? Like, is having long hair a female-specific trait? How come men can have that? Is having breasts a female trait? Then how come you can be a male and get fat and then have breasts, you know?
That's circular. That's not a definition. Again, I'm going to keep challenging until you give me an actual definition. Because if you're giving a circular answer, I'm not going to... Well, a circular answer is different from a definition, right? Do you know the difference in words?
Yeah, so a woman is a gender identity that aligns...
That's not a gender identity. That's a circular definition. I want you to just actually define what a woman is.
So instead of saying...
No, but it's not... No, but you're giving me a circular answer. You don't seem to understand the difference between the two words. I'm asking you for a definition.
It's a gender identity that aligns with female typical.
That's circular. That's not a definition. That's
so where's the circularity?
Well, the circularity is the fact that you can't...
Does a woman have to identify as a woman to be a woman? According to these people, yes. And the thing is, that kind of invites, well, if someone doesn't have the ability to think up what their gender identity is or identify it as being from one of the choices or whatever, then what gender are they? Do you not just revert to sex?
Actually define what a woman is.
It's not circularity. What does circularity mean?
It is because you're not actually being definitive with your
What circular is this conversation?
answer, which means you're being circular. Okay.
What does circularity mean in this
Because
context?
you're not, because what you're doing right now is circular because you won't give me a definition.
Oh, I gave you a definition.
No, you didn't. You give me a circular answer. I'm asking you to define what.
Yeah, it would be circular if it was like a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, or a woman is a person whose gender identity matches up with traits that make you a woman, or something like that. Woman and female don't mean quite the same thing. A woman is a type of female. It's a female of age, you know.
Where's the circularity?
No, I'm actually asking you to define the word, just the word, nothing else.
Look, I know you go on to other lives. Look, I know you go on to other lives, and that's all they say. It's circular, it's circular.
No,
you
but
have yet to show me where the circularity is. And then you have yet to show me why my definition is not to be used.
I mean, it's not to be used because it's ridiculous. Like, what's a female trait? Why would you base all this kind of stuff off of, like, very subjective things that's different for everyone instead of just observable shit? Why not just, you know, is it not better that we describe things in objective ways than, like, subjective ways if we have the ability to? And, like, these people love to talk about, like, social utility. There seems to be a lot of whatever the opposite of utility is to redefining men and women in this way. It seems to cause a lot of problems, actually.
So can you do that? Can you do those things?
I've been trying to tell you how to do that. Is
Where's
the
the
fact that you
circularity?
won't give me a
It doesn't sound Scottish to me. It sounds Irish, but I could be wrong.
definitive. Right. Well, there's a difference between a definition and circular.
So
I'm
what's the
asking.
circularity?
No,
What's the
no. But
circularity?
you're not listening to the language, right?
He's starting to spurg out. Like, I don't know. He came in with 1 point. Unfortunately, it's not working. You gotta be able to get the conversation moving. You can't just, if you're saying something that's just inviting the guy to say the same thing over and over, then you're not really doing it well. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, does it mean what he's saying that you need to be feminine enough? You need to tick enough boxes that are, like, female coded? It just doesn't really make any sense. Like, this is a really stupid talking point. And the only reason he's kind of winning here is because the other guy is just going round and round. Ironically, he is actually being circular.
language is, I am asking you how to define what a woman is, and you're giving me a circular answer, which means that I'm correct and you're fucking wrong, and you can mute me all you want. But all I'm asking you to do is give me an actual definition to what a woman is.
It's a gender identity that aligns with female typical.
Again, that's a circular answer.
So where's the circularity?
Well, because you're not defining what I'm asking you.
That's not what circularity is.
Yeah, he's making it sound like you're not saying the answer I like. I like my top. It's just a Adidas hoodie. Yeah, there you go.
Means.
Yes, it is. It means that you're not given a definition. It means you're being circular about the definition. Yes, you can say all you want. I've give you clarity.
So circularity means that you're using the same word to define the word you're defining.
Exactly. You're being disingenuous.
Where did I use the word twice?
No, you actually give me a definition, not a circular.
Where did I use the word twice?
Because you're misinterpreting exactly what you're saying.
Where did I use the word twice in my definition, though?
But that's not actually about using the word twice, is it? Because that's not completely what it means.
Usually a circular answer or a circular definition is in fact using the same word within the definition of that word. Like, fuck it, how long does this go on for? This guy, like, really didn't think this through very far, did he?
Okay, so
Read out. No,
where's the
no, no,
circularity?
don't play to your minions in the comments. Read out the exact meaning, my friend.
Yeah, so where's the circularity?
Exactly. So shut up. So I'm asking you to give me an actual definition and stop being circular.
So the definition under current gender theory.
What circular is the conversation?
Oh, under current gender theory, right? So there's no actual.
Like, we're starting to get a critical, like, awareness fail from the guy calling. We're starting to get, like, a critical, like, failure to understand the irony of what is going on right now.
Definition is just under what you can tell me is a feminist university study. Right, okay.
Both these guys don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So the definition is a woman is a gender identity that aligns with female.
Yeah, so you can't answer. That's all you have to say, my friend. Thank you very much. You're an idiot.
Bit of projection there, I'd say. Jesus Christ, that was terrible.
Look, the guest, his sentiment is very...
And then they always bitch about the person they just talked to as well. It's fun. But then, I don't know, if you're getting called in with someone like that, it's a bit like, I don't know, bro. You kind of deserve to be bitched about, honestly.
typical and understandable. People are very mad. They want to be very contrarian when it comes to trans, veganism, atheism. People want to be very contrarian. And
He's not trying to be contrarian, is he? He disagrees with you. He's just not very good at verbalizing it and doesn't really understand what he's talking about. That doesn't mean he's trying to be contrarian. Like, the thing is, the guy that called in is obviously a moron. And now this guy's trying to over-intellectualize him. Like, it's not that deep, bro. He's just being a bit of a nonce. Not a nonce, but kind of stupid, you know? Being a bit of a debate nonce. There we go.
just whatever they have to say to say you're wrong. But they're not listening. If only he had listened to what I told him. There was no circularity. A woman is a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits. That's all that means.
Yeah, see, that's a retarded answer, but you gotta expand on it. You don't just say, oh, well, that's circular ad infinitum. Like, that ain't doing nothing.
And that's why trans women are women, because they align with that gender identity. And gender identity has to do with your neurobiological patterns, which all of us have.
Like, this is nonsense. I mean, how much is your gender identity affected by your experiences and by the world around you and things like that? That is not neurobiological stuff. That's like social stuff.
Have in our brains, which gives rise to our genders. I'm not a man because I have a peepee. I'm a man because I have a particular brain phenotype.
Yeah, have you ever seen your own brain? How do you know what your brain looks like?
And that's what gender comes from.
That is not what gender comes from. Gender is derived from sex and is the social, cultural aspects of that. It's how you express yourself. It's how you are seen by others. Now it is circular. Hang on, let me have a look. God doesn't make mistakes. If you're born a man, keep your penis. It's a bit late for me on that, unfortunately, St. Louis. If you're born with a vagina, don't try and grow a dick. Well, you can't grow a dick. You have to get your arm flesh taken off and wrapped around a thing. Let me just
I'm not a man because I have a peepee. I'm a man because I have a particular brain phenotype. And that's what gender comes from.
Yeah, it's completely wrong. Gender is a social construct. It's not a biological thing. It's not a psychological thing. Like, there's aspects to it of, like, psychology. Because obviously you have your own self-identity. That's going to include, like, how you feel about your sex. How you want to express yourself. How you'd like to be received. Things like that. But really, it's like a social thing. You can still grow it back. You just have to watch Bible Black. What's Bible Black? I've never heard of that.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Hey,
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi, yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, I would like to debate trans women or women. I agree with essentially everything else that's up for debate, so... Yeah, just like out of curiosity, like, what is your definition of a woman?
This is quite funny in a way.
It's a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits.
Right, okay. Can men be feminine? Can men align with female typical traits?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you align with female typical traits, you're a feminine man. That doesn't mean that you're a woman. In order for someone to consider you a woman, you have to actually actively identify as a woman. You can't just be a feminine man. Otherwise, what you're doing then is you're telling feminine men, oh no, you're actually a woman because you align with certain stereotypes. That just doesn't work.
Right, okay, so then you can't... Well, I mean, like, if you're saying that if you're defining a woman by something that men can be, how do you differentiate between a man and a woman?
Because words are inherently fuzzy.
What do you mean by
for
fuzzy?
example,
This guy's a script, like hardcore. We watched a video, like all the beats. Like, how do you differentiate between a man and a woman? Well, words are fuzzy. Like, what?
And by something that men can.
Are we talking about Bible Black again? I don't know what Bible Black is. I'm not looking it up because I got baited yesterday about fucking hermaphrodite porn or some shit. Nothing came up anyway, so it didn't fucking work. You're all very funny. Anyway, I'm just fucking around.
How do you differentiate between a man and a woman?
because words are inherently fuzzy.
Didn't answer shit. Let's see if he goes further.
What do you mean by
For
fuzzy?
example, do you think there's a differentiation between a truck and a car?
We literally watched a video of him doing all this shit. You're not sorry, but it's fine. Don't worry. I don't hold it against you. Like, we watched this. He had to make a whole video. We saw all of this. It's nonsense. Trucks and cars are both vehicles. I don't know if you can really make that kind of connection, because a truck and a car aren't the same thing, but have similar things in common. I mean, a man and a woman typically both have 5 fingers on each hand, typically have a pair of lungs and a heart, typically have skin of some color, typically have bones in their body. I don't know, bro. I don't know what he thinks he's arguing here.
Yeah, to some extent, but they do the same
Okay,
thing.
so let me give you this example. You think that there's a truck and a car.
Definition, though.
Hold on.
Because it's like, well, the differences between a truck and a car are kind of, it's almost kind of colloquial in a way. Like, you'd consider a truck something that has like a flatbed of some kind. If it doesn't, it's probably a car. There's not a huge amount of difference between the two because they're both kinds of vehicle. Like, I don't know, men and women are both kinds of human. You could draw so many different distinctions. Oh, sorry, you could draw so many similarities that men and women both have this, that, and the other. Because we're all human, ultimately. Wild. How does he decide who he sleeps with? He probably doesn't. Probably gets around that behavior by not. I have no problem with feminine men or masculine women. I just hate when people refuse to accept the gender, I mean, you mean sex, that they obviously belong to at birth, given that 99.9% people are born with one sex organ. I mean, if someone individually thinks that they're a woman when they're a man, it's not the end of the world. But, like, there's a whole social movement around it now, which I don't agree with, I don't fuck with, you know what I mean? I'm ultimately a male, I'm a man, you know, that's fine, I don't care. People can call me what they want.
So you believe that trucks are distinct from cars.
Yeah, in some way.
What is the primary distinction between those two things?
Yeah, that's what I'd probably say is, like, a truck tends to have a flatbed of some kind. It's a pickup truck, it has that kind of back bit that you chuck stuff into, and then someone nicks it out of your truck whenever you hit a red light. A bigger truck is gonna attach to something.
I mean, I would say typically, like, a truck would be used to carry, like, heavy goods, whereas a car is typically...
But a car can do that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, and we're not arguing about men and women. This is like completely off the track already. Like, if you have to go straight to analogies like this as your go-to, then you're probably not very good at this. Analogies are fine, but they should, in my opinion, it should be a lot more supplementary. You should be able to make an argument first as to why what you're saying is correct, and then use analogies to, like, back that up, as opposed to, well, what I say is correct because of this analogy. That doesn't really work, because you're not talking about cars or trucks, ultimately. And, like, a car and a truck, it's not like a car and a truck is the vehicular equivalent of a man and a woman. It's not like cars are gendered or anything like that. Like, that's a bit ridiculous. Oh, there's no problem, St. Louis. I try not to get offended by much.
Absolutely, but...
Oh, okay, so does that mean you can no longer differentiate?
Well, no. I mean, like, I guess, like, I would argue...
Yeah, how are femboys not women then, in that case? And they don't seem to get a choice in it. Even though gender identity is pretty much a choice. Because it's ultimately what you call yourself.
You know, that, like, a truck could, like...
Yeah. How is a truck and a car? Like, which is the man and which is the woman? It doesn't make any sense.
Potentially carry something that's the weight of a car, you know what I mean? And a car, like, obviously couldn't unless it was attached.
There are cars that can do that.
Yeah, but I don't.
I guess this is like, is this Mott and Bailey stuff? Maybe it is. Like we're arguing on the point we're strong on, which is that cars and trucks, the difference between them is a bit kind of. Ever seen a man drive a Fiat 500? I probably have, and he's probably gay.
Understand how this is relevant.
It's relevant.
A truck is a vehicle that can carry more than 12 tons. Okay, fair enough. Do you not get like smaller pickup trucks and stuff that can't though? I don't know. But then none of this matters because we're not talking about fucking cars.
Because your criticism of my...
Yeah, you probably could make your car into a truck if you like took off. Like you've got a 4x4 or something, you get a window put halfway through and then take the rest of the top bit off and make a flatbed. I don't know. But this has got nothing to do with anything. He's gone straight for the analogy without bothering to actually make his case for why men and women are not a sex-based thing. When it's just so much easier. Like at some point, does Occam's razor not come in? Maybe it's just a male as a man and a female as a woman, both of which have reached a certain age, which is a bit arbitrary to be sure. There's going to be certain ages you'll reach, where in some countries you're considered a woman, in some countries you're considered a girl. That's true.
My point was that I can't differentiate between what a woman is and what a man is.
Right.
That's not...
But the problem is you can just by sex. What's the sex equivalent of cars that is making this difficult?
Not how we use words in linguistics. See, there's something called prototype theory, in which there are no key factors that distinguish things perfectly.
Well, for most people, there are key factors as to which are men and which are women. You got penis, XY chromosomes, sperm production. Or you got vagina, XX chromosomes, egg production. For most people, it's very simple. So if you're going to give a different definition, you should also be able to show why your definition is better and easier to use and all of that kind of shit. But it seems like we're making things more complicated.
There are only degrees of belonging to categories. And that's why when you're asking, oh, how do you differentiate a woman between a man? That question is missing the nuance in linguistics.
No, I mean...
He hasn't shown any of this. What is he talking about? Like, I've watched this video. He's just saying this video, but in argument form, in a debate. Like, it's actually quite cooked. I wonder how I could get hold of this guy. I'd love to talk about this more.
I hear
what you're saying.
Between a man and a woman is based on standout traits.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Based on typical traits. And that's why I used the definition I did.
Mm-hmm, yeah, okay. I mean, like, I do see where you're coming from for sure, but at the same time, I mean, like, do you believe that there is, like, an inherent difference between, like, a man and a woman? Like, physically...
There are distinctions that we can make.
Yeah, right.
There are clear distinctions that we can make.
Yeah. So how can you, like, how can you claim that a woman is something that a man is able to fit into that category? I don't understand that.
I wonder why it always seems to be British people calling in. Like, this woman sounds Scottish. The guy earlier, well, British Isles, was Irish. I wonder.
Again, because...
I mean, you can say, like, the Lori thing.
Hold on.
Okay, I think she should let him speak at this point. Like, start laying out what you think the differences actually are. That would be good.
So let me explain.
Okay.
How we categorize things is not based on one feature that excludes the other thing.
Well, it can be.
That almost never happens in language. That's almost never the case. Like in the case of a truck or a car. There is no key feature about a car that a truck can't have. It doesn't exist. In the same sense, there's no trait that a woman has that a man can't have.
Doesn't this just depend on what you're choosing to compare, though? Like, if you're comparing a trike and a bicycle, there is one extremely clear difference as to which one is which. That being, a bicycle has 2 wheels and a trike has 3. So isn't this just picking, like, specific examples that fit your narrative when you could compare any two things? And there might well be a specific thing that means that it is this. Like, a bicycle... Oh, no problem, St. Louis. Have a good one. Like, a bicycle has 2 wheels, necessarily. It's what bi in bicycle means, 2. Tricycle, 3. Like, sometimes there are very specific differences that mean that something is not something else. So he's just found an example, that being trucks and cars, where it's a bit more fuzzy. But that doesn't mean that every word is fuzzy like that. It doesn't mean that every two things you can put together, you could say, well, these things have a lot in common. So it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, isn't there like a specific thing that kind of differentiates a hatchback from a sedan or a saloon, depending what country you're from, for example? Like a 4x4, wouldn't you say necessarily that would have to have like four-wheel drive? Maybe.
But we still can make distinctions based on standout traits, based on typical traits. And that's how we can still categorize things.
Right.
The reason why this is important is because when you suggest that a woman is merely reduced to their genitalia,
I never said that.
their ability to, I know, I'm just suggesting.
He's going off the script. He's not, I don't know if he's even listening really to what this woman's been saying. He's just rattling off the script. Like, reducing it down to genitalia. Well, the problem is, there are two distinct categories of human, one which has a penis and one which has a vagina. And there's like extra people. There's like extra people for whom it is more complicated. That being people with certain kinds of DSDs. But A, those people are very rare. And B, the whole reason we have one or the other genitalia is for the purpose of reproduction, first and foremost. So it's all about your reproductive role. 4x4 can have all-wheel drive instead of four-wheel drive. I don't know what the difference is, but fair enough. Listen, I only know so much about cars. I don't even have one right now. I wish I did, but I don't.
Suggesting this is where you might be going.
Well,
If you're reducing what a woman is to
Oh my god, this is...
their ability to produce gametes, large gametes.
Well, it's not just ability to produce gametes. It's what you are producing, will produce, would have produced, used to produce, should be producing, if not for a problem. Like, you still have this stuff there. Like, if you use genitalia, genetics, and gametes, you can categorize almost everyone. Like, that's just how it is. Four-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive. Listen, I didn't even know there was a difference, to be honest. I thought they were both the same thing. Intersex people are still male and female. Overwhelmingly, yeah. I bet you probably could find the odd case that I'd say you really can't categorize them as either. But that doesn't mean that there aren't two sexes. That means that there's a small amount of people that don't really fit into either because of something that went wrong. You know what I mean? Like, these are like genetic aberrations anyway. Not that the people are mistakes, but they're like genetic mistakes, accidents, you know? So the design is still what it is anyway. Hi, Sukan119. Hope you're good.
Well,
Sorry,
what you found there is you have completely dismissed all the psychological and neurobiological nuance behind gender.
Well, he hasn't shown any of that yet. You haven't explained any of that. And the thing is, your gender is very malleable by your environment. How many trans women do we see that like they see someone or something that kind of inspires them in a certain way?
Gender is not black and white. It's very much a spectrum, and that's why we have to update our definitions.
I don't even think gender's a spectrum. I think, well, I guess it could be, but it's the two poles are male and female because they're masculine and feminine. So you have to acknowledge that you can't completely separate gender from sex.
How do you know that gender is a spectrum?
Like, I'd love to know how he defines sex, bearing in mind sex is like objective and that there's only two like positive categories. There isn't a third category. Because even people with DSDs that mean that they perhaps aren't very easy to assign, they're all going to be different as well. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a scientific basis for this in the case.
What's the scientific basis for it? Like, what study calculated this? High quality, preferably, but...
Yeah, so studies find that there are brain phenotypes in people.
Can you cite me the study so I can read it myself?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to load up my computer now.
Intersex is a misnomer. I don't think I agree, but intersex doesn't actually define very many people. There aren't actually very many intersex people, like, at all. Because most people still have, like, one or the other. If they produce gametes, you already have your answer, because they'll produce one or the other. And, like, Yeah, I mean, like, the genitalia should be producing something if it doesn't, you know? I guess what I'm saying is, like, there are people that probably don't fit it, but, like, they're vanishingly rare. You could call them intersex, but we're talking about so few people. And then the way people usually use intersex, some people will bring in, like, PCOS and stuff like that. PCOS is not intersex. Klinefelter is not intersex, you know?
It's called Neurobiological Characteristics Associated with Gender Identity. Findings from neuroimaging studies in the Amsterdam cohort of children and adolescents experiencing gender incongruence.
I don't think intersex has to imply there's a third gender, but people, or third sex rather, but people use it that way for sure.
And what the study finds is that we looked at people's brains, transgender brains, cisgender brains, and we're finding that there is a brain phenotype to people, which then gives rise to their gender.
Oh, is this the Julie Baker thing? Prominent hypothesis. Related to an altered or less pronounced sexual differentiation of the brain. Hypothesis has primarily been based on post-mortem studies. Post-mortem, so they've been on, like, HRT for how long? So this doesn't really hold a huge amount. Further addresses hypothesis. Cohort in children and adolescents experiencing gender incongruence. Additional research objectives were to determine whether any sex and gender differences established before or after puberty. Yeah, like, does the brain divert that much? Like, bearing in mind they haven't finished developing, and brains are, like, very elastic. Brains kind of change for a whole lot of different reasons. Whereas gender-affirming hormone treatment would affect brain development and function. Found some evidence in favor of sexual differentiation, but this was less evident at the structural level. So there's not really that much to go off. Observed some specific transgender neural signatures might present a unique brain phenotype rather than being shifted toward either end of the male-female spectrum. Our results further suggest the years between childhood and mid-adolescence represent an important period which puberty-related factors influence several neurocharacteristics such as white matter development, functional connectivity patterns, both sex and gender, identity-specific way. Like, I don't know, like, gender identity is so, like, affected by outside factors. These latter observations thus lead to an important question. I mean, for all I know, this fucking guy might think that, like, gay men might count as women. That is pretty ridiculous. Latter observations lead to the important question: positive, negative consequences of delaying puberty on neurodevelopment. Oof. That's not good. Larger. So there's little to go on with this, and this was from, like, 2024. There is little evidence for this ultimately. Is this the one? Neurobiological characteristics associated with gender. I think this is the one he cited. Yeah, some evidence was found at the functional level, and they said less so at the structural level. This is not strong evidence, to be quite honest. Like the limitations. Unique sample of prepubertal and adolescence. Gender incongruence. I mean, if a gay man's brain, like, resembles a female's a little more, that doesn't actually make them female. I hope that's not what I was saying. Well, I mean, your brains are sexed in some ways because they get, like, washed with either testosterone or estrogen as a kid. They're going to be further affected by, like, your puberty. You know, having testosterone in your system affects, like, your behavior. Like, there's definitely effects from, like, hormones and stuff, and that's going to happen throughout your experience, your life, you know, especially during puberty, especially in the womb. Reading remarks. Yeah, this just isn't strong evidence, in my opinion. Sample size remain rather modest. I seem to remember this one was, like, not a big sample at all. Was it this Julie Baker one? Is this the one that he's pushing? Hang on, let me just get what he said again. Like, what he said the study was called.
No problem.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna load up my computer now.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
It's called Neurobiological Characteristics Associated with Gender Identity. findings from neuroimaging studies in the Amsterdam cohort of children and adolescents experiencing gender incongruence.
If this is his smoking gun, then this is weak sauce, quite frankly.
And what the study finds is that we looked at...
Yeah, so things like effects from hormones would be like, your sex does affect your brain in some ways. But there's only so much evidence that brains are like strictly sexed. Like there's an awful lot of like crossover. There's an awful lot of stuff. But your sex does affect like how it develops in some ways.
At people's brains, transgender brains, cisgender brains, and we're finding that there is a brain phenotype to people, which then gives rise to their gender. So people that are transgender...
Did they? Is that what that says?
There is a brain... Is that...
Hi, Twix. I hope you're good.
We looked at people's brains, transgender brains, cisgender brains, and we're finding that there is a brain phenotype to people, which then gives rise to their gender.
Is that what they found? There is a brain phenotype. Oh, the thing is, I don't have the whole thing, which is annoying. I mean, they're saying it's like... kind of sits somewhere between maybe what a typical male and female brain might be, if such a thing exists. Which I guess it technically does, but those two things might not be very different. The thing is, by the way, do any of these people actually ever get access to these full reports? Bearing in mind you have to purchase it or access through an organization. Has this guy actually seen the full thing? Because I've only got like... You see where the dots appear? Like, I've only got so much to work with here. These processes might have been affected differently in individuals with gender incongruence. I don't know. I think your mileage is going to vary, I think. In some people, it's going to show more. In some people, it's going to show less. It seems to be a kind of selection bias, maybe, but it's difficult to show, really. Young subjects. I seem to remember it was a small sample as well. Yeah, sample size remain rather modest. They'll admit that, which is fair enough. It's good to be able to limit the generalizability of our findings. I just don't know that they're saying anything like what this guy is saying here.
And what the study finds is that we looked at people's brains, transgender brains, cisgender brains, and we're finding that there is a brain phenotype to people, which then gives rise to their gender.
Your brain phenotype gives rise to your gender, even though gender is a social construct. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. I'm sorry, I'm done looking at this fucking shit. He's talking out his ass. I need to see more evidence. Like, maybe he'll give some, I don't know. But just looking at this, I'm not seeing what he's saying. That's a crazy conclusion. And like, most of these studies will literally say, like this Julie Baker person has literally fucking said that like more research is needed. It seems like they're trying to avoid making like super strong conclusions.
So people that are transgender are born that way because they have particular phenotype. And the same thing applies to me or you. We are born with the brains we have, hence we are born with the genders we
He's never seen his brain, I bet, as well. Look at your own brain.
have. And that's why people that are trans are born transgender.
Like, this is utter nonsense. I'm sorry. People are not born transgender. There's no evidence for that whatsoever.
Wait, is this study conducted by...
Like, you can have gender dysphoria for no apparent reason. So it kind of is tempting to say that and tempting to feel that way. But we really don't have anything to say that trans people are just born this way. Like, because then what is the difference between like a detransitioner and someone that persists their whole life? I don't know. This is nonsense.
Science Direct, am I on the right page?
That's well, that's not conducted. That's not the conductor of the study.
Oh yeah, sorry. Is it like cited by?
But that's the study. Yeah, that's probably the study.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. I'm gonna read through the study, right, and I'll get back to you if I find anything else that I want to discuss. But
there are
yeah,
many more studies than this one. There are many more studies.
Well, can you give me another one as well? Because I don't just want to read one study and critique it. Yeah.
Sure. There's one called "Sex versus Gender: Associations with Brain Structure," and it found that furthermore that gender was correlated to brain sex.
Where was it? I think it was on this one. We found some evidence in favor of the sexual differentiation hypothesis at the functional level, but this was less evident at the structural level. He seems to be saying What did he say here? Sorry, I'm rewinding a lot. I appreciate.
Discuss, but
There are
yeah,
many more studies than this one. There are many more studies.
Well, can you give me another one as well? Because I don't just want to read one study and critique it.
Sure. There's one called Sex versus Gender Associations with Brain Structure. And it found that, furthermore, that gender was correlated to brain sex.
Because this argues against what Julie Baker is saying that it was less evident at the structural level with like these trans people. So there's already contradictions. The human brain has a ton of plasticity. That's also true. Sex versus gender associations with brain structure. Sex but not gender was associated with the proportion adjusted brain volumes. Gender but not sex was associated with prefrontal cortical thickness. I don't know. We're like talking as if gender is like an innate thing, when gender is a societal thing. It's a social construct. What we need is like a common tongue when it comes to what fucking gender is. We need to get our heads straight on what fucking gender actually means. Part of this problem is just that gender is so fucking terribly defined by most people. I think my definition is fine. I hear other people saying basically the same thing as me. But that's the only way I can find a use for like splitting gender from sex. And it's still not fully split from sex because it's derived from sex. Otherwise, why are the genders masculine and feminine, male, female, masculine, feminine? It's derived from sex. So, examine the association of sex versus gender. Yeah, a societal construct. This is so ridiculous. You read all of these. Oh, fair enough. I'm not saying there's absolutely no evidence for what he's saying whatsoever, but there's not anywhere near enough to make the conclusions that he is making. And the problem is, when you have these kind of arguments with these kind of people, you have to like drill down, and you'll have differences in how you perceive different things. And someone like this, they've got an impetus to like come to a conclusion based on no evidence, because it'll satiate their audience. Which, I mean, I don't know, they're not completely turning out for you, I'll be honest. Some of the comments are a bit rough. Can Mike define what a woman is without using the word woman or female? I mean, it's perfectly fine to use the word female in a definition for woman. Like, this guy's spurging out a bit, to be honest. Wasn't it John Money who split sex and gender? I have no idea. I think it's fine to have different definitions for sex and gender. It's a modern thing. It wasn't always that way. Gender used to mean sex, as far as I can tell. But there has to be some kind of... These people don't want definitions to be, like, constant. They want to be able to come up with their own definitions and be like, well, words are fuzzy. Well, definitions can be whatever you want. Well, then... I don't know, man. If I call you a fuckwit, can I just say, oh, well, based on my definition of the word fuckwit, that's complimentary, actually, and you should be glad that I'm calling you a fuckwit? I don't know, bro. Screen for... Yeah, 88. The sample is 88 people, by the way. Bear that in mind. It's always tiny, tiny sample sizes. Gender role endorsement. Like, gender roles? We're talking about brain structure. Female sex was associated with larger proportion adjusted volumes for basal ganglia, hippocampus, blah, blah, blah. And how much of this is affected by, like, skull size and shape, by the way? Higher continuum score is associated with thicker cortical thickness for left and right superior frontal cortex. Female sex, higher continuum scores, independently assessed with larger corpus callosum volumes. Sex-specific association with higher femininity scores and thicker prefrontal cortex cortical thickness for the ROIs in females but not in males. In conclusion, sex and gender showed semi-independent associations. And the other thing, how much of it is post hoc when you're talking about gender and brains? How much are you kind of starting with a conclusion and going backwards? So we've got like a tiny, tiny sample. So how much is this generalizable? Who knows? But you'll get debate bros here. Use this to make bullshit arguments on the internet. Find a bunch of crazy conclusions. brain structure in female to male transgender individuals more consistent with their gender expression rather than natal sex? Again, are they pre, post HRT? Not enough data when it comes to trans issues. Yeah, often the case. Several limitations, relatively small sample size, at least they're honest. Like, the problem often isn't these studies, by the way. The problem often is these debate bros that will read these studies and make a whole bunch of like conclusions based on often quite non-committal things that often will say things like, well, ultimately more research is needed, which is fair enough. I'm not saying that's a problem. The problem comes where people start concluding crazily off of stuff like this. Demonstrated semi-independent associations of sex versus gender with brain structure in an adult population sample.
Sorry, I'm so...
And he's going to be relying on that people are not going to read through this whole thing. Probably can't even access the whole thing on several of them. Come to all kinds of crazy conclusions. Sorry. He's going to bank on them not reading all of them or being able to read all of them to be able to defend his point. In which case we just end up with a stalemate.
Okay, and that was Science Direct as well, yeah.
Like, ultimately what matters to these people is just not conceding. He just has to be able to not concede and keep the tempo, keep the stamina up. And that's all he needs to do.
Yeah, just so I have the right one.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I'll check these out, and if there's anything else that I want to discuss, I'll request again. But yeah, thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Interpreting a lot of data. Well, yeah. There's going to be a lot of confirmation bias, I would have thought. Generally, these people look into this because they want to show that trans women are women, not they want to understand brains better.
By the way, this is not Saratoga water. This is my tap water. I have filtered into that. Hello?
I'm glad he mentioned. I was worried about what kind of water he was drinking.
Hey, how's it going, bro?
Great. How are you?
I'm not going to go on the God is imaginary. That's just a lost cause. I've done that.
Kind of a debate blocker to just bring up studies someone didn't read. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But all he has to do is not concede. Just never concede. And someone out there is going to look at you and think, oh my God, that guy's an epic debate lord. He's like owning the fucking conservatives or whatever shit.
That a million times. You should be a vegan. I've tried that a million times. It's a lost cause. But trans women are not women, my boy. We got it. I'm not even going to ask you for the definition because I know you're right. Everybody goes circular and all that shit. But a woman is an adult female.
Okay, this person is spurging off the gate. What are you doing?
We're not saying girl. We're saying woman, right? Okay. So would you say your mom is a woman?
Yeah. Look, the reason
correct, because she's not a little girl.
Let me explain. The reason why we don't define woman as an adult human female is
what people do. You're saying why you don't, not why. You say the reason why you don't, while people do.
Explain. The reason why we don't
why we don't. No, why you don't. Most people define it as that.
Define woman as an adult human female is because number one, it's still not particularly clear what we mean by female.
No, it really is. It really is clear what you mean by female. You produce the large gamete, or you should be able to, or you were able to, or you will be able to. That isn't the real Amaya Deakins. It might be. Is it not? Hang on. I can't be asked. It has appeared before. I think it might be. Is your mom a woman? Yeah, I wonder what sexuality this guy is.
Is it the production of large gametes? Is it their ability to produce children? What is a female?
Well, all of those things. I mean, ability to produce children, less so. Not everyone can. You're not less of a woman if you can't. You aren't able to function as per your biological imperative, sure, but hey.
And there's a spectrum of sexes. But furthermore, more.
There's a spectrum of sexes, but there's not, though. There isn't. There aren't more than two gametes.
Powerful when you define a woman as an adult human female, you're missing out on tons of neurobiology that has illuminated much about gender and the gender and sex distinction. And we're finding that gender comes from the brain. There are subtle brain differences in people that give rise to brain phenotype.
Mate, there are subtle brain differences in every single fucking person when next to another fucking person. Jesus Christ. Like, if this is the kind of shit that he's using, these like tiny sample, fairly non-committal studies that I'm not saying are bad, but they're, you know, self-admittedly only saying so much. And this is like cooked. I'm sorry, bro. It's not working. Guaranteed this dude identified as pansexual in 2004, maybe. I don't know if he was old enough to know what that meant, because I don't know how old he is, but...
Types, which then give rise to genders. People that are transgender are born that way. So to better encapsulate all...
He hasn't shown that at all. None of the data shows that. You're just inferring that. You're divining that.
All the facts about the science behind gender, we have to update our definitions. And defining a woman as a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits far better captures that nuance. So
he hasn't shown that. All he's shown is that this wildly overcomplicates things and just ignores sex.
Does that make sense?
Like, in that case, then what, you know, what does he think sex is? What does he think the reason is that you get people with penises and people with vaginas? Like, does he not think there should be a word to describe the people that typically produce the small gamete and have a penis and have XXY chromosomes, and the other people with vaginas that produce the large gamete and have XX chromosomes? Should there not be maybe words for those things? Like, as far as I understand, woman is like the equivalent of like doe, or like you, or like fuck, like bitch, or something like that, depending on what species you're talking about. Doesn't even sound like he believes what he's saying now. Well, he's just got a script, doesn't he? Just reading off a script. Like, I've already heard the script because I've watched this video here. If you watch this video here, you've got the script to hand. He's just like reciting it off.
You're free to unmute. It's the microphone button.
I got it. I didn't know you muted me. Shit. Anyway, I think that didn't make no sense at all, actually. No, because women they can bear children, they have periods, they have a uterus. Men do not.
Yeah, I'm wondering what words he thinks should be used for those two groups then. Like, male and female, sure, that is what that is. But like, you typically have a separate word for like a juvenile or like a child and an adult. Wouldn't be surprised if this guy thinks a penis can also just be a prolapse uterus. Hey, maybe. Might be off topic. Do you think there's a difference between AGPs and transsexuals? Well, an AGP is like... I think they're two very different things. And like, you can be trans in AGP, you can be non-trans in AGP. I mean, I'll think about it more, I guess. But as far as I can tell, they're two different categories.
And all the difference is when a woman gets the transition into a trans woman, a woman gets trans into a trans woman, they get their penis and just invert it. That's not
Doesn't always even happen, by the way.
a vagina.
So, first of all, this does not address anything I told you. You didn't address the
Yeah, but am I wrong? Am I wrong, though, Mike? Am I wrong?
It's irrelevant whether you're right or wrong because it doesn't address the concern.
So that's okay with you, though.
What, it's irrelevant that he has a different definition of what women are to you? I think that's fairly relevant if you're debating that topic.
Using your definition,
But he's not going down the dialogue tree the way this guy wants him to, you have to understand.
misses out on tons of utility that we would have otherwise had if we just used my definition. And this is why the current gender theory definition...
Like, what utility? Satiating some men's feelings?
Is that?
Meanwhile, women's sports are in disarray. Women are getting disenfranchised, keep quitting competitions because they're going up against men who tend to be stronger than them. Meanwhile, we've got all these fucking conversations going on about fucking bathrooms and female spaces and stuff like that. I don't know what utility he thinks there is here.
And we don't use your outdated version of what a woman is.
Like when he says we don't use, like, people do. I'm sorry, man. You're just coping.
And you haven't addressed
Like, who is we exactly?
this. You're just saying, no, a woman is this. But you're not really addressing why we're using these terms. There is no objective definition of what a woman is, by the way. It doesn't exist.
No, there is. If you base it on sex, there is an objective definition of what a woman is. Sorry about it.
So to argue that is a hard task.
Yeah. Okay, Mike. You keep thinking that, buddy. I guess, but
Okay.
See where he smiles because the other guy quit. That means he won. What a fucking loser. See? Oh my god! Look, I won that one. He can't answer my question. Is it because your question is stupid? Maybe.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Great.
I have a disagreement with the third statement. Trans women are women. Can you elaborate on your stance real quick?
A woman is just a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits.
Okay. You do realize that most people don't have a problem with that statement in itself. They have a problem with the overarching issue of trans women being in women's bathrooms and women's sports. That's where the issue really comes from. So, and they've always existed. This is not like a new issue. So nobody really cares about nobody's denying their existence.
There's lots of resistance right now against people that are trans, and I think a lot of the way to reduce and diminish that resistance is to teach people what gender really means. Gender comes from the brain, and it's.
Well, we need a consistent definition on gender first. How does it come from the brain? Nothing he said has shown this. You look at the actual studies. They're not concluding the way he is.
It's a neurobiological phenomenon, and
Speaks in such absolutes, like what he's saying is axiomatic. Well, yeah, you have to. People don't like people. Like, if you want an audience of like a certain politicized group, you kind of have to speak in absolutes. Like, that's what these people want. They want someone who's going to be like, yes, trans women are valid and here's why. The problem is, when you dig into it, it doesn't often make any sense. And he speaks about nuance when he is actually trying to remove nuance, quite honestly.
And if people just better understood that, they wouldn't be so hateful. They wouldn't be so quick to hate people who don't understand
Why the only thing about trans women, I would say his definition exclude females. Maybe, how so?
them. People who they don't understand. So.
Yeah, the problem he's having is he's not explaining why femboys are still men. Like, if you follow enough female traits, even if those aren't things like vagina or whatever, but you still identify as male, then you're not a woman. Really, it's a choice. He wants woman to be a choice that you can make, is how it comes across anyway. But then really he just wants to satiate the group of people that agree with this statement, so.
That's the issue still stands of these are biological males that are in women's sports. It doesn't matter if they're transgender.
You mean that they have genitalia or
call it what you want. That's not the issue.
Their sex is male or female, right? That's what you mean to say. But gender is also biological.
If sex is male and female, then how come you can identify as female or male? Maybe he doesn't even think you can, I don't know.
Biological. Gender is still biological. Being trans is still something you biologically have.
But you just said that gender comes from the brain. It's not physical, right?
The brain is a biological.
How can a social construct come from the brain?
The brain's biological, and that's why being trans is biological.
Great, yeah. So they can be biological, but they can. So because their gender
Everyone is biological.
is, let's say, gender is female, right? Let's say this is somebody who was.
He's also quite trying to equate disagreeing with hating trans people. I mean, that's what a lot of people have been doing for a long fucking time. I get plenty of that shit. I must hate trans people because I disagree on certain things. When you actually listen to these evil transphobes, often they just disagree on some stuff, and like, You could choose to listen to someone and be like, well, I disagree and I'm going to go on with my life thinking this, that, and the other instead. And that so-called transphobe is probably not going to actually give a shit as long as you're not doing anything that like they perceive harms people, you know?
Was born a male, their gender is female, but their body is still male. Why is their body competing in women's sports? Because that's kind of unfair, right?
Yeah, this is a separate question, and I agree that I don't care about sports. I could care less if you played a sport. But as far as this topic is concerned, I don't.
I mean, at least he's said he doesn't care about sports without making some kind of positive statement. Yes, trans women should be in sports. I will grant him that. There we go. I'm so balanced. Everyone tell me how balanced I am. Oh my God.
I think we should understand that being trans is biological. It's just neurobiological.
Right, but
distinct from your genitalia or your
Mr. Brigandi, the issue is not coming from the fact that
being trans is like psychological, if anything. But that's like affected by your experiences, by the outside world, you know? Plenty of people transition for like external reasons, not internal reasons.
people are denying this. The issue is coming from the fact that
I think it's both. I think people are exploiting the fact that
the God is imaginary thing is a bit insulting. It's atheist debate bro shit. Like, I'm an atheist myself. I always found this kind of shit cringe. Like, you believe in God? Okay. Many people have many different like perceptions and definitions of what they think God is. Many of which are probably not literally a giant man in the sky that you can't see. I don't see the point. But hey.
that transgender people are vastly misunderstood, and they're using that to hate others. And then they're on top of that, they're using the sports thing.
Yeah, part of the reason we're misunderstood is because of people like you, my guy.
To further advance their hatred.
I'm a guy and I wish I was a girl. It's fucking not very deep. I feel some kind of impetus to feminize as opposed to follow along and be more masculine like most of my fellow males. Like, I don't know. What is there to explain? I was given the option that I could change things about my body to become more like feminine and make it look more like a woman. It increased my chances of being perceived as a woman, and that's what I prefer. So I went along with it. It's really not very deep.
And further advanced their political hatred.
But do you kind of concede that point that they shouldn't be in women's sports because that's literally unfair?
I don't concede that.
I wonder why he thinks that autism and trans are like correlated. Bearing in mind trans is like neurological. And presumably so is autism.
I don't see a problem with that happening.
You don't see a problem with that?
I don't see a problem in high school or in elementary school or middle school sports at all.
So if a 15-year-old boy can just wipe out a bunch of girls' dreams just because they decided to switch.
It's not wiping out dreams. Sir, I'm sorry, but nobody takes middle school.
It's going to disenfranchise. Okay, he's actually engaging in a topic he's already said he doesn't care about. This is retard level. You're still going to like disenfranchise some kids. Like, I imagine in elementary school or primary school, whatever you're calling it, it probably doesn't matter a huge amount. Almost no one has gone through puberty yet, etc., etc. Male puberty seems to be what people most cite as the point at which the advantage really begins. But like, even in high school, stuff like that, when the boys start to become bigger and stronger, you're going to start disenfranchising girls when you put them in together because they can't compete with the males, and it kind of seems like female sports is not an exclusive thing to females anyway. So even that, like, I think these people just don't think about it. He's got the cover of, well, I don't care about sports. But then why argue it? I just fucking complimented him for not engaging on a subject he admits he doesn't care about. But then engage with it Why? Why? Fuck me, bro. Never played sports in school. Yeah.
School sports.
Oh, hi, Kill Switch. I hope you're good.
Seriously.
I mean, this translates to professional sports too.
I mean, school sports are kind of serious. You get kids that get like college fucking... What's the word? You get like grants and stuff like that. Scholarships, there you go. There are kids that perform extremely well in certain kinds of sports. They get scholarships. Yeah. The teenage boys soccer teams that destroy the US women's national team and stuff like that. Like, this guy doesn't have a clue. And it's fine to say, I don't give a shit about sports, and then change to a different topic. But he says he doesn't give a shit, and then carries on arguing it, and makes like points as to why he thinks it should be mixed. Why do that? Why do that? I don't fucking understand these fucking debate bros, man. This isn't debate bro shit. This is debate pedophile shit, is what this is. Debate pervertery.
I mean, if I were to switch,
that could be a bit different, and sure, but look, I don't care about the sports thing.
Then why engage? Just say you don't care and move on. Oh my god, kill me.
okay, so fair enough. You don't care about sports, but how about the bathroom thing? Have you heard about the Loudoun County case where a 16-year-old boy raped a girl?
This is something I didn't have on my bingo card. All the people that decide not to have kids and do the family thing want to tear down all the kid and family thing. Yeah, Jesus Christ. I don't know, like, I listen to someone like Chud Logic, who doesn't really talk about, like, trans shit. But, like, part of the reason his perspectives honestly, like, impress me is because he has kids and he actually has to think about that kind of shit. And when I listen, like, to these kinds of people, most of them don't have kids. Most of them clearly have never had to think about any of this kind of shit. So it's so easy to be, like, ignorant. It's so easy to make up a bunch of bullshit. Oh, hi, Jib. I hope you're good.
Girl in the bathroom, pretending to be.
How did trans people enable this? They didn't. They were just existing.
Okay. So, like, tensions have increased over bathrooms, in part because we've decided that rather than, like, pass and blend in, you just identify. So people now feel they're entitled to, like, women's spaces. Because if you identify as female, you then think that you are entitled to every single thing that a woman is entitled to. And that just doesn't really work. So it is kind of partly on, like, well, not just trans people, but everyone that's stuck up for this shit. Plenty of cis people, plenty of, like, gay people, plenty of straight people, generally left-leaners, social progressive, stuff like that.
And what you described, although it's bad, could have always happened.
But it's the allowance of them in the bathroom, in the women's bathroom. That's what caused it.
They were always allowed to
This
be in the
acceptance will just create more.
And always will be allowed to be in the bathroom. There's nothing about being trans that enables this kind of behavior. So you're fighting the wrong battle. You're attacking the wrong people.
Somebody brought up another good point. He said, talk about the kids. The kids should not be learning about this because they're so moldable at a young age.
Kids should absolutely be learning about what it means to be transgender. Kids.
Why? Bearing in mind it's going to raise their suicide level, make them less likely to have children, and bearing in mind, I'm sure this fucking idiot has never thought about this in any length of time whatsoever, even though it's an argument pro-immigration. But your birth rates are falling. They're going to keep falling, in part because of that kind of shit, potentially. Like, I think kids should probably understand that trans people exist and they should be treated with the same kind of dignity and respect as anyone else on default. Obviously, depending on their actions or whatever shit. But why do kids need to learn that much about this kind of thing? Why do kids need to learn that it might be true with them and they should really spend time staring at their navel thinking about their gender instead of getting an education and finding their niche in the world? And, like, developing fully as a human being, or while developing as a human being to adulthood before thinking about that kind of shit.
Really?
I should absolutely be understanding this, because if
something tells me this guy doesn't give a fuck about women, oh, fuck knows. Well, I mean, what even is a woman to this guy? This guy doesn't even define women the way you do.
they don't understand it, it leads to the current situation where people just hate and are ignorant about the matter. That's why children should be taught about gender and sex and sexuality. It's very important for our understanding of each other. We live together, sir, and people that are trans are always going to be here.
Yes, but what if you're putting ideas in people's heads? Also, does this guy look like... I'm trying to think. Someone said Hassan. He looks a bit like Hassan. He looks a bit like Dark Viper, but, like, skinnier. Dark Viper's still around? The 14 Pages guy. I actually used to be a big fan of Dark Viper AU. Like, he's done some good content. He's just a bit of a spurg. But, like, I don't know. When he became, like, a lolcow, I was like, oh, I don't know. I can't quite get in on this. Does he look like him? I don't know. I'm getting a bit of him. I'm getting a bit of Willie Mack. I'm getting a bit of Hassan. I don't know. Is there someone else? I don't know. He looks like someone. We'll keep watching because this is, like, actually killing me.
people that are gay, or lesbian, they're always going to exist.
So what would you teach children?
So yeah, teaching them they exist, I guess, is fine at a certain age. Going into detail about all these different gender identities that were mostly coined on Tumblr, why is that needed? Why is that necessary?
Just to dismiss them.
What would you teach?
Say, oh, let's not teach about that. That's a recipe for disaster.
Right, but what would you teach children in schools, young children like 6, 7 years old? What would you tell them about transgender stuff? And what did it translate?
Not 6 or 7, but
yeah, what would he think of, like, if he watched the Sarah McBride shit, reading a book about, like, girl brain and boy body, telling a bunch of kids, like, well, society told everyone that I was a boy, but actually I was a girl. Like, what would he think of stuff like that, for example?
When I learned about it, I was about 9 or 10. I think that's a great age to start teaching children about sex.
Right. What would you teach them about? I'm not talking about sex.
Teach them what being trans means. Teach them about what gender means. People
explain it.
Well, let's have an actual definition of gender first. Parents can teach this. It doesn't belong in school. That's the other thing. Like, there are some things that I think a parent would rather teach their kid in their own time. And you could make the argument that there are some things that maybe schools shouldn't be interfering with that. It's kind of similar to, I don't know how many people remember, because this is from a decent while ago on my channel, but I was talking about someone called Jess doing activism. This person will they'll have like these debates, like doing vegan teacher impressions, debating like children as to why they should be vegan, and like send them videos, like send them like Dominion and stuff like that, like shocking slaughterhouse footage. Like you're kind of intercepting like the parents, like they might want to explain to their kid one day where their food comes from and how where meat comes from is not the nicest thing in the world and stuff like that. And it involves death and stuff like that, pain, Is it not a bit irresponsible for someone just to show up on the internet and start bursting these kids' bubbles, like completely ignoring that a parent might want to teach a kid about this in their own time when they feel that they're ready,
Kiddo, let me tell you what trans means. So there's these, explain it. Go ahead. Because I'm curious. I'm curious what you tell a 10-year-old child about transgender.
Yes, we would teach kids about genders, about what a man, what a woman mean, what transgender means. We teach them that it's a part of the brain, it's a part of it's a scientific process.
And what would be the purpose of doing that?
Yeah, teach them a bunch of shit that you've concluded off of reading some studies that really don't show all that much. And bear in mind, he says he's read a lot of studies. So presumably the ones that he cited, that's his best foot forward. That's his best examples. Studies that I think it was less than 200 people between the two of them. You know what I mean?
You teach them about that. And we would not just say,
isn't necessarily better for the environment to be vegan. Yeah, it probably depends what you're consuming.
They don't exist. Just don't look at that. That's absurd.
And what would you teach them about these topics?
Teach them that it's perfectly biological. It's just part of being human to be trans. It's part.
I guess it's part of being human, but it's like more of a social construct than anything else.
For what purpose?
It's part of being human to be lesbian or gay or bisexual.
I wonder why this guy thinks, like, as far as I understand, WPATH has never told people that they should get their brain scanned or recommended that caregivers scan their patients' brains to make sure that they're definitely trans. Like, there's just no use for this. I didn't get my brain scanned once. I don't know anyone who's got their brain scanned when transitioning. Without getting into it too much, don't you think it's weird? A lot of vegans who believe you shouldn't kill a single animal is pro-choice. I guess it's kind of weird. I've also met plenty of vegans who that is also the reason why they are pro-life. I mean, I think I do get it, but it is a bit strange. It is a bit hypocritical.
Period. Like, it's that simple.
But like most of I don't know what this guy's stance on abortion is. I could probably guess that it's the one that contradicts veganism. But I've come across quite a few vegans that they do kind of follow that train of thought.
For what purpose? I mean, I don't drag my son over here and tell him that, hey son, there's this thing called a threesome. It's like, why are you telling them?
That's a caricature.
Teach them.
No. Stop. See, this is what you're doing. You're saying, oh, we teach about gender. What else is going to lead to? It's a slippery slope. Well, the problem is no. Of course, there are restrictions on what we should be teaching them at a very young
Okay, what happens if we don't teach children about gender? Where's your slippery slope?
age. But what we should not be doing is restricting the mere existence of gender. That's something that everybody should understand. Teaching about sexual positions, that's not something we typically teach kids because, that could lead to weird things.
I love this like performative, like teaching about sexual positions. Fuck me, man.
But teaching about gender is something vastly different. You're kind of equivocating and you're suggesting that there's something icky about being.
He is kind of right. It's two different concepts that aren't necessarily on equal footing. But then trucks and cars versus men and women is also not on equal footing. So he commits the same sin like earlier on.
To be a purpose in teaching.
That's the problem. You just don't understand what transgender means. Do you know what being transgender means?
Do I know what being transgender means? No, explain it.
Exactly. You don't know what you're critiquing. And
somebody feel that they're not in the correct body.
The problem is, even being trans is so terribly, terribly defined.
Do you know what being transgender means?
Do I know what being transgender means? No, explain it.
Exactly. You don't know what you're critiquing. And
somebody feel that they're not in the correct body.
That's precisely the problem here. That's precisely the problem. We don't understand them. And then we make up these things like, oh,
it's so patronizing.
Oh, it's icky to believe that. Oh, it's crazy. That's
like, did he say it's icky to believe that? Like we're essentializing hard on here.
The problem. You don't understand it. And
he doesn't understand it either. And there isn't a consistent definition of what being trans means. But it's fine actually to say, I'm not sure I understand it. Or to base it on what you do understand, but acknowledge that you... Yeah, see, you say you have extreme dysphoria, so you transition. Like, that's just one definition people use. There's so many. So the idea, like, plenty of people don't understand it, but you're not explaining it in a way that makes any sense. So what do you expect?
That's why we ought to understand it, and that would help us understand each other better.
Well, yes, but you have to get the story straight on what it even fucking means. The problem is, there's so many different definitions. We've decided that it's having a gender identity different from your sex, but like that doesn't make any sense. That's just calling yourself a thing that's different from your sex. And it implies that gender identity is like derived from sex, but it's also not derived from sex. And it makes no sense.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Wait, did he kick him or did he quit? Like, just lectured him and then he disappeared.
Icky. And that's why we...
I mean, maybe the guy quit when he heard him talking like that. I don't know.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
How can we understanding something that can't be defined? Well, you can define trans. It's just that there's many different definitions people use. So how do you know which is right? And therefore, how do you understand it on that basis?
Good. How you doing?
Great.
All right. My stance on this is simply that trans women are women. Sorry, apologies. Trans women are women disguised as men. Oh, sorry. Flip it. Trans women are men disguised as women. There you go.
Okay, what does a trans woman mean?
A lot of the nowadays.
What does being transgender mean?
What is transgender?
So my definition of a trans woman is a male person that lives as a woman in as much as they can, wants to be perceived as a woman, etc., etc., etc.
Gender?
Yeah.
Transgender. It means somebody was first a man or a woman changed their.
I don't understand why people bother with debate broad types. I mean, in my case, content. They never want to hear your position or change their mind. Yeah, I mean, you're always going to bait people. You say some like bizarre shit, you're going to bait people for sure. Like, some people are just like autistic about that shit. They don't like seeing things that they don't agree with. I don't know. Lots of reasons. I mean, for someone like me, it's like content. Like, listening to people say utter bollocks about like trans shit is entertaining. I also am just interested in like perspectives on this whole thing. So
Their gender, basically.
No, that's not what it means.
That's what it means.
Change your gender. If you're transgender, it doesn't mean you're changing your gender. It means that society tells you you're something. They tell you that you're a man, but then you grow up and you realize, no, I don't
society tells you, like, fucking hell. He's actually reciting the fucking Sarah McBride shit.
align with that gender identity.
Will I react to Brianna Wu debating the neurosurgeon? Yeah, I already did that. If you go on my channel, I posted a video about that last night.
So you don't change your gender, you just align with a different one. And that's why, because people that are trans always were that way.
What does it mean to align with a gender? What does he think a gender is?
It's not like they, suddenly changed. It's just that society tells them there's something that they're not. And that's it.
This is stupid. Like, I don't think anything else is like, a definition is not typically based on what society tells you, you know what I mean? Oh, God.
And again, people that are trans are born that way. They have, just like me and you are born with the gender we have, they are born with the gender they have. It's just that...
Yes, you're born with a social construct. Well done. Amazing.
For them, there's an incongruence between their brain sex and their bodies.
Brain sex. Oh, my God. There is definitely not evidence that there is brain sex from those fucking studies. I'm sorry. Does this exist? What are you talking about?
Sex.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So you are pro any type of identification. So if somebody decides to be identified as a, let's say, an animal, a dog or something, you're going to be like, okay, you know what? Let's be accepting of.
Nope, it's unique to sex and gender. Everything else, you can't do that. But for some reason, sex and gender, you can.
This.
No, that's completely disanalogous. Because, again, when we're talking about gender, we're talking about a neurobiological thing that has to do with the human psyche. It has nothing to do with species. It has nothing to do with your species or your race or this. It has to do with your neurobiology. And so,
Yeah, so it's socially constructed and has to do with your neurobiology. What?
That's why...
How come no one scans anyone's brains then? How come that doesn't happen in trans care? How come even WPATH isn't on that shit?
Suggesting, can I identify as a cat? That doesn't make any sense because gender isn't species. It has to do with your brain.
Do you think that it's a mental issue that people are getting confused?
Wait, but gender is only a thing for humans. Dogs don't have gender. Cats don't have gender.
Not a mental issue. It's not confusion. It's only society that's confused about them.
Really?
Trans people are not confused. What's happening is that society consistently tells them that they're a man, when in reality their neurobiology says, no, I'm a woman. And that's why they're trans. It's not because there's something wrong with them.
So your claim is that neurobiology is 100% always accurate, that there's no type of issue or
there's no evidence
in most cases.
Yeah, what if someone's delusional? What if someone can't actually vocalize their gender identity? Then what are they? No, there's no evidence of an issue with trans people's brains inherently.
You don't think that there can be...
How does he know any of this? He's just making things up. How do you know any of this?
Biology is 100%...
Oh, you have a trans dog? Oh, fair enough. Well, your transgender dog is heckin' valid, okay? And very poggers, too. His car analogy doesn't matter. Yeah, true.
Always accurate, that there's no type of issue or...
There's no evidence of an issue there's no evidence of an issue with trans people's brains inherently.
You don't think that there can be some type of error or problem in people's brains?
What's the error?
Oh, when these people talk about trans women, if you start asking about trans men, they will just say exactly the inverse. Like, trans women are more contentious because of things like bathrooms and sports and shit like that, and no one really seems to care much about trans men. And these people will just use the inverse. If someone goes in, well, what about trans men and men? He'll just use exactly the same arguments because there's no difference whatsoever between trans men and trans women, apparently. It's the exact same mechanic, even though the cohorts tend to differ a huge amount.
There's nothing about the brain that's an error in regards to their gender.
All right.
How would you possibly know that?
So, transgender.
Literally, imagine taking my brain and putting it...
Yeah, tell WPATH to watch this and update the SOC so that they scan everyone's brains and find the totally real part of your brain that shows that you are trans, even though it doesn't exist.
To a female body. It's almost directly analogous to that. There's nothing wrong with my brain. If I put it into a female body, there's still nothing wrong with my brain.
All right. So, but you're talking about something that's completely different there. So you're saying that basically.
I mean, the problem is, I'm trans. There's a fucking hell of a lot wrong with my brain. There's actually a lot of studies suggesting that trans people are much more prone to like mental health issues, and not always ones that can be caused by external factors like autism and stuff like that. Typically believed to be innate, but there's like a correlation.
People are born a certain way, and then they decide later on or at a certain point in time that, you know what, I'm actually not this way. I'm not this, I'm this. Do you think that that's valid?
It's not that they change. Again, sir, people that are trans always understood that they didn't fit in with the gender that people told them they were. They always understood that. It's not like they're just waking up one day and going, oh, I'm a woman today, and they're changing. No, it's not just a feeling, like a feeling that you...
They always felt that way. I did not always feel like. You're taking so many assumptions and just believing so many people at their word, as if people don't retcon their pasts, as if people don't, when they're thinking about what's wrong with them and they think about how they used to prefer dressing up in fucking dresses or whatever. Oh, that means I must have been a woman. Like, it just doesn't work, man.
Do you think that that's valid?
Scanning brains is proof, yeah, they never do it when screening if people should transition. Exactly, yeah. No one does it. It's not recommended by WPATH. It's not done by anyone. I don't know any trans people who've ever had their brain scanned. He's talking as if he had his brain scanned. Yeah, that's the other thing. What is his brain gender? What if he looked in there and saw something that suggested he might be trans? Does that mean actually he was always a woman, he should transition, and society has been telling him that he's a man, but he's also been telling himself he's a man because society's been telling him, it's so stupid.
It's not that they change. Again, sir, people that are trans always understood that they...
Aren't you assuming someone's gender by calling them sir?
Didn't fit in with the gender that people told them they were. They always understood that. It's not like they're just waking up one day and going, oh, I'm a woman today, and they're changing. No.
Like, you're just taking a lot on faith here. Yes, transgender people never make things up. Transgender people are never wrong about anything to do with their gender, sure. Sure, bro. Why do detransitioners exist then?
It's not just a feeling, like a feeling that you have
It is a feel. Oh, fuck. It is a feeling. Gender dysphoria is a feeling. You feel a certain way about your sex, aka you don't like your sex. That's all gender dysphoria means to me. Is that you don't like the sex that you're born as. You're not happy because of your sex, or at least that's how you perceive it. You might actually find you're not happy because of something else and you pin it on your sex. That's another thing that happens. I don't think this guy knows anything about psychology.
A basic feeling that it's something about their neurobiology. It's the wiring of the brain that tells them that their gender is the gender they are. It's not something that you could just change on a whim.
He doesn't know any of this.
So again, you're not quite understanding what transgender people are.
Okay, so you're okay. Now I'm understanding a little bit here. So you're making a claim that there are certain people in this world that just simply were, I guess you could say, born a certain way, mm-hmm. and they claim to be a certain way. And although it doesn't align with the norms of society, it's just how they feel they are, I guess. And
you feel you're a man, right?
Well, I mean,
yes.
You gotta define that.
Just like I have this innate feeling that I'm a man. It's not just like a whim feeling. It's something very deep. It's a deep internal self-perception about who I am, and that's the same with transgender people. They have that deep internal perception of who they are, and it's that society is telling them that there's something, but they don't align with that. Hence, transgender.
All right. So my question for you is, how would you, at that point, we would have to define or figure out what a man is, what a woman is, I guess they're in a different type of category because you're calling them a transgender person, a transgender woman, transgender man. But then you're not really making the claim that they're a man or a woman. You're calling them transgender women. So I suppose
trans women are women because what a woman is simply a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits, and trans women fit that definition, and that's why trans women are women.
So you're saying that somebody who can't give birth or someone who doesn't...
Do all trans women even fit this definition? How many female-specific traits does any one trans woman have? Exactly. I don't get it. Hi, Demaya Eakins. What the fuck is going on? Jesus Christ.
Doesn't have a vagina can be considered technically a woman regardless of not having those parts.
Correct. Because gender is distinct from sex. They're two different things.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is like circular argumentation. I think it leans towards like infinite regress. There's always something else, and then something else, and then something else, and then something else. It never really actually comes any closer to making any sense.
Trying to understand how that makes any sense.
Because gender is neurobiological. Again, studies are showing that there are brain phenotypes. There are types of brains that
They're not showing that, bro. What do you mean? Studies are showing that. What?
are connected to your gender.
There's suggestions that your gender identity, that there might be something because of like certain brain functions. Like the Julie Baker one suggested that there was less evidence that your brain structure has anything to do with your gender identity. If you actually read the fucking studies, bro, you might understand this. Or if a gay man has more specific traits than a trans woman, does that make him more of a woman? Maybe, yeah, maybe. He would probably disagree with me that I'm a woman, but then what you call yourself is ultimately king. It's all about what you identify as. And to identify as something means you call yourself a certain thing.
Identity. We have studied transgender brains and cisgender brains, and we find that there's a correlation between trans women brains and cisgender woman brains. We find that their hypothalamus structures and cell sizes are very correlated. So we are finding that there's brain phenotypes to people. And people that are transgender, they fit a certain phenotype and the same as me or you. But they fit within the woman category because they think and have the wiring of a woman, a typical woman.
You know what? This is like an interesting take. I've actually never heard this before.
He's like, none of this. What are you talking about?
Same as me or you. But they fit within the woman category because they think and have the wiring of a woman.
How do you think like a woman? What does it mean to think like a woman? What does it mean to have brain wiring of a woman as opposed to a man? Like, this is the dumbest fucking debate, bro, I've seen yet. Like, nice grift, I guess. You've got fucking 6.82 subscribers. We're roughly on a similar fucking trajectory. Because this is an older channel. What is this? Oh, God is imaginary. So he's much more cut his teeth on like atheism and like vegan stuff. Me versus Parker. Is Parker the guy that hangs out with Dean Withers? Crazy. I mean, this Parker guy seems like he can actually debate, unlike Dean Withers. Dean Withers is a fucking hack. And like the gender thing seems a bit more new, a bit more recent, which makes sense. A lot of these people go from like the whatever shit, one to the other. Empath. That's funny. Thinking like a woman sounds like acting effeminate. Yeah. We're making gender, well, we're trying to take things that are based in sex and make them completely subjective. Because what does it mean to like act like a woman? Different people are probably going to say different things, right? Different cultures are going to have different ideas of what is like masculine or feminine. But sex is like constant. Like, what is this shit? Why? Why are you doing like fucking? It isn't even a good grift. Like, this is not. Maybe his TikTok has like a decent amount of followers. I guess this shit is kind of big on TikTok, it seems. Yeah, I had to go looking for it. How nice. Might want to update that, bro. Okay, so much more followers on TikTok. So I guess the grift is working over here, which sucks because what he's talking about is utterly retarded. Are we living in a simulation? I'm wondering that after listening to you speak, bro. I'm not seeing much of the human brain. Maybe this is stuff to do with gender. Oh no, I'm not really seeing anything actually. Like, this seems like he talks about different things on here than he does on YouTube. Baffling. Very, very baffling. What's Patreon looking like? Oh, it doesn't say. Oh, total members 5. I'm so confused. The TikTok doesn't seem to have super amounts in common with the YouTube, apart from pushing the same kind of stuff. There's TikTok atheist vegan, and then what's linked is not TikTok. How do you think like a woman? You have to be thinking about boys and like cooking and wearing dresses all day. That's how you think like a woman. 500k on TikTok. Has this guy like fallen off maybe? Is that what's happened? He's looking a decent amount younger in this. He looks like Hunter Avalone, fucking hell.
This is the most dangerous.
This is from 2020. Are all his big things from 2020?
This is just regular Earth.
Yep. Still looks very old. This looks
Who were the 5-dimensional?
2024. And he's got the odd more recent thing. It's not quite adding up, but I can't put my finger on it.
A typical woman.
When will people understand that science only serves a practical and useful methodology and not absolute truth? Well, this guy is not going to help with that, unfortunately. Say what you want about Marcy Bowers. She acknowledged that science is never settled. Jesus fucking Christ, I would take 10,000 Marcy Bowerses over one of this guy. Jesus fucking Christ.
You know what? This is like an
Looks like Elliot Rodger.
interesting take. I've actually never heard this before.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here. Anyway.
So,
Scientifically.
Yeah, the latest views are low. It seems like the odd thing has still popped off, but I think he's fallen off somewhat. And maybe this new grift is an attempt to get back into relevance, because so many people talk about trans stuff. Fair enough, it's a hot topic. I know.
Backed. It's backed by the evidence. I have studies upon studies showing that there are brain phenotypes and brain sexes.
all right. Well, I agree with you. So I guess at this point, there's no reason to hate anybody anyway. So, but yeah, all right. I hear your point. So it's fine. Understand that. All right. If anyone else wants to jump on, come on.
I have a feeling this guy is being polite and like, that's fucking dumb, bro.
I appreciate you kind of sharing a different opinion, a different take on the subject.
You forgot definition of a woman. Thinking like a woman means thinking as gender identity that aligns with female typical traits.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
What's up, Mike?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Long time no see. I'm sure you already know my view on this. I know in the vegan community, my
What are his hands doing? Like calm down, bro.
opinion is strewn like wildfire up in this bitch. This is the question I would ask for those that say that trans women are trans women, or excuse me, are women. What's a lesbian?
Lesbian has to do with your sexuality.
Right. So if I, a homosexual woman, right. So I, a homosexual woman, someone who's same-sex attracted, if I got with a trans woman, would I still be a homosexual woman at that point?
Yes, because
How though? If they're different sexes, babe. So do you believe sex and gender are the same or different?
No, they're different.
Okay, so if you believe sex and gender is different, you understand sexuality is exclusively same-sex attraction, then you would then understand that homosexuals only exclusively.
The traditional understanding of sex was, male or female. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about,
Yeah, that is what sex is. This dude seems so damn smarmy. I mean, he's a leftist debate bro, arguing these particular topics. Being smarmy is just part of the whole thing,
better understand and encapsulate what that means by incorporating transgender people.
Well, I don't want to incorporate male bodies. See, I'm a homosexual woman. What makes me same-sex attracted is that I'm attracted to those that have the same genitals that I do. It is exclusively means that I'm attracted. Right, but because if a male gets some breasts, that doesn't make them.
You're still lesbian. I understand that.
Right, but if I'm with a male and I'm engaging sexually and I'm enjoying it, I would have to then come to terms with the fact that I would no longer be a homosexual.
No, because again, that's
a male and a female are homosexual.
Hold on. That's keeping your traditional definition of.
Yeah, I'm liking this person. Someone's actually got. Some balls, finally.
Lesbian.
So what other thing is so males are now lesbians?
Look, there's an entire study about gender, gender studies.
Okay, but gender study doesn't change.
Let me explain.
I actually think you can be a woman dating a trans woman if they're post-op and still retain lesbian status, personally. But I don't think I'm a lesbian.
Entire field of study that has to do with understanding gender. And when we talk about lesbians, in order for them to fit within this new domain of understanding about gender, you have to recognize that people that are trans women are still women.
Okay, explain to me.
Like, here's the thing, though. Like, sexuality, is that about sex or is it about gender? Surely it has to be one or the other, right? Never seen a TERF lesbian. There's plenty of them. I mean, how many lesbians got peaked over the whole tickle versus giggle thing, if you know what that is?
So would I be still homosexual then if Mike, you're not allowing me to speak. All right, go ahead.
Because they fit within the woman category, you would still be a lesbian if you were with a trans woman. because
how would I still be a lesbian if they're a male?
They're still women.
But a female is a female.
We're
Mike,
not talking about
lesbian is female who's exclusive. Mike,
we no longer
Mike,
have to talk about sex that way. We now have to understand that
you said yourself, Mike. You said yourself that sex and gender are different, babe. You said sex and gender are different. Therefore, by definition,
Yes,
right?
that's why we
So
have to
sex.
recognize-
Listen, homosexual. What the definition is one exclusively attracted to one own sex, not gender.
Yes,
it's clear. Right, so which means
that there is no objective definition of sex or gender or anything. Words are just have
This fucking idiot doesn't think anything has a definition. In which case, what's the point?
usages, right? However, the problem with suggesting that lesbians is only has to do with same-sex attraction in the sex definition you're using is the fact that you're discounting trans women. Trans women.
No, you're not. If you fuck a trans woman, you might be straight. I mean, I think that if someone closely enough resembles a woman, then you probably can be a lesbian with a trans woman. But that's quite a specific thing. And that still relies on you no longer having a penis in the traditional sense. You know what I mean? Does he think you can just define yourself into anything? Yes, yes. He thinks that if he decides that a cat stands on 4 legs and neighs, then that's what a cat is now. You know what I mean?
Women are women. Hence, if you can still be lesbian and be considered lesbian and be attracted to a trans woman.
If he decides that a dog grows and sheds antlers every year, then that's what that means now. That's how this shit works. What's this guy's name? Mike Brigandi.
You understand? It no longer has to do with. It doesn't have to do with sex. In the case that you think, right? It has to do with genitalia. It has to do with the neurobiology.
Mike, so you're arguing with a lesbian right now.
Wait, so he'd say that a woman having sex with a trans woman who kept his penis is therefore straight?
Now telling me what a lesbian means.
Well, again, this is
Sexuality, not genderality, but I can believe some lesbians will date a post-op while passing trans women. Listen, I'm with a trans woman, lesbian, excuse me. I don't call myself a lesbian, but I think you can date a trans woman, depending on if they pass, depending on if they had the surgery, you know. If they closely enough resemble a woman, then I think that is fine.
This is a highly debated topic.
Yeah, but a topic that doesn't make sense when it's put up against basic
it makes
reality.
perfect sense if you understand that trans
I'm a
women are
homosexual woman who's same-sex attracted. What is there more to understand? I
He's like mansplaining lesbianism to a lesbian.
like the same bits I have.
Again, it has to do with not just sex in terms of your genitalia, right? That's why we have to.
No, it literally means genitalia. That's literally what I'm attracted to. That's what makes me lesbian.
If that's what you want to think it is, then fine. But that's
What do you mean, not the gaslighting?
There is
What do you mean? What else is lesbian? If it doesn't mean that I'm attracted to my own bitch.
Yes, silly woman. Now I'm going to tell you what lesbian actually means as a man.
So what does it mean?
It could be the same gender attraction.
But it's not. That's not what lesbian is.
Yeah, you can also date a trans man and still be a lesbian, for sure. This guy is so stupid, he's dangerous. Well, yeah, I would say so, but it doesn't seem like this particular grift is working amazingly. We've got 576 views. That's worse than I do sometimes. And this is from March 30th. So I think, thankfully, at least, this particular thing is not working out for him. I mean, I'd love to talk to someone like this. I keep saying this and I don't do it. It's really cringe, but like, I need to start keeping an eye on these people's schedules so I can try and catch the odd one and just ask them questions. She's legit owning him. Yeah, I agree. Jesus Christ. Like, there's so much shit to explain that when someone cuts through the crap, he can't take it because he needs about 1 million years. It's a bit like watching Vorsh when he used to go on debates, like debate panels specifically, not just debating one person. When he used to go on debate panels, he couldn't fucking hack it because on debate panels, there's so many other people trying to get a word in that when you've got one guy that needs 10 minutes to explain literally anything, you get 1 minute in and then everyone starts cutting you off because they don't want to sit there and listen to one guy ramble on for 10 fucking minutes. That's what this is reminding me of.
It literally is the same sex attraction.
And that definition would way better encapsulate.
But it doesn't encapsulate males. Why would we fight for same-sex marriage if anybody can be same-sex now? What's the point?
Again, we have to update our definitions based on new data.
What do you mean new data of what? Some people that want to act.
Don't you have to agree on that new data and what it represents first? Otherwise, what you get is people all just splintering off into what every single fucking thing means. I don't think everyone having different fucking definitions of everything is helpful, personally.
Like lesbians, but don't understand the lesbian experience?
Because we're discovering that people that are trans women are indeed women.
Okay, but again, no.
Is it lesbian to date a trans man with a vagina? I'd say it probably is, yeah.
A trans woman is a trans woman.
I mean, I can see why a straight woman might be attracted to a trans man and not mind like the vagina and stuff. But then I think we probably rely too much on labels with sexuality as well. I think that we argue too much. Well, is this niche situation, does that mean you're straight, gay, or bi? Does this niche situation, like, I think sexuality is kind of fluid for most people. And like, yeah, most people overwhelmingly prefer one or the other. Most people overwhelmingly are straight because, like, how are we going to reproduce otherwise? It makes a lot of sense. It's an evolutionary thing, you know? With all due respect, don't you think that makes you bi? Maybe. To be honest, I just don't care that much about the labels. But I mean, me personally, I would say I'm straight. I'm a male. I'm only attracted to women. There might be the odd trans woman I find attractive. I wouldn't really be doing any like dick stuff because I'm not into that. So I don't know.
Sweetheart, a trans woman is a trans woman. A woman is a woman. I mean, it's basic. It's basic.
Exactly. So when you recognize that they're actually women,
How are they actually women?
Yeah, so what's the difference then? How won't he answer that? I guess he thinks the difference is society told you were a man, but you're actually a woman. That's like retarded.
They've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria and incongruence of the mind and body, which is a debilitating mental health disorder, and they take medical steps. Excuse me, they literally take. Excuse me, I'll
Can be. Gender dysphoria can be. Like, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know the people he argues for. Some people's gender dysphoria is apparently debilitating.
you on this mic. You want to bring up the studies? Let's bring up the studies. Because again, it's gender dysphoria, and it is the medical incongruence between the mind.
Look. Most people that are trans don't have gender dysphoria. That's number one. Okay, number two.
Most people?
Between the mind.
Look. Most people that are trans don't have gender dysphoria.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's even remotely true. Lots of people like saying, you don't need to have gender dysphoria in order to be trans. But almost every trans person I see reports that they have some kind of gender dysphoria. All of the people that say that shit still somehow have gender dysphoria. So yeah, there probably are some trans people that don't have it. Because you could transition. Technically, you can do that. You can live your life wanting to be regarded as the other gender or aiming for that, whether you want it or not. And that's fair enough. That could be trans. But I don't see many of these, I don't see many examples of these trans people that don't have dysphoria. Everyone I hear from, they seem like they do have dysphoria. How are you going to get that most of them don't?
That's number one. Okay, number two, it has nothing to do with that.
He's obviously a bit flustered. Like, when someone actually comes in, usually these people just debate like retards. Like, the kind of people that call into this aren't always very smart. You get some people that just, as soon as they see trans women or women, that flips a switch. Oh, well, you're talking shit, whatever. And they haven't actually really thought about it for any length of time. But he's talking to someone that has. I wonder if he's muted her, by the way. I wonder.
It's debilitating. It's not debilitating at all. Number three.
It can't. What? He doesn't even know the people that he's talking about.
And it is the medical incongruence between the mind.
Look. Most people that are trans don't have gender dysphoria. That's number one. Okay, number two, it has nothing to do with that's debilitating. It's not debilitating at all. Number three.
If your gender dysphoria isn't debilitating, why the fuck would you transition? Oh, kill me. This guy is like, how have I only been watching this for 40 minutes? This guy is nuts. What are you doing?
Three, people that are trans women are women because they fit in that category.
They're not. If I am sucking eggplant, let's be real here. I'm not a lesbian.
Hold on. Again, you're
Especially
defining gender. The problem with defining a woman as female, adult human, is that you're dismissing all of that nuance in psychology in the science that demonstrates that trans women are indeed.
Why are you?
Mate, he's going to lecture someone about psychology when he thinks that gender dysphoria is not debilitating. It fucking can be. At least by people's accounts. And sometimes we're agreeing with people's accounts, and sometimes we seem to be ignoring people's accounts. It doesn't make any sense. Like, trans people are always correct about everything they say. But then lots of them seem to report that the gender dysphoria caused them significant distress. And we're just pretending that that doesn't exist. I don't fucking get it. I'm a lesbian TERF in the sheets now. Broke my own heart trying to be with a post-op trans woman. She didn't smell right. She didn't feel right. Masculine qualities that remain dicked me out. Hey, listen, like, everyone's different. Some lesbians are not going to want to date trans women of any kind. That's fine. That's their fucking preference. Some lesbians will, the illusion or whatever is enough. And that's fine.
You're hell-bent on erasing what it means to be a homosexual.
We're not erasing anything.
You are. You're erasing homosexuals.
We're not
By
erasing
adding
anything.
males to homosexual lesbian, you're erasing what it means to be a female lesbian. We fought for those rights. Not for males to come in and take over.
Nobody's erasing you. What we're doing,
Well, you are by denying what a homosexual.
If anybody's erasing somebody, it's you erasing.
I muted her again. What a little pissant.
For males to come in and take over.
Nobody's erasing you. What we're doing,
Well, you are by denying what a homosexual.
If anybody's erasing.
Yeah, he's been muting her. That's the second time, at least. That being said, you can call yourself a lesbian with the post-op. Yeah, that's what I think. It doesn't mean you have to. If you're a lesbian, you don't want to date any male people. That's your prerogative, ultimately. That makes sense in a lot of ways, you know?
Erasing somebody, it's you erasing trans women.
Explain how when you're forcing them in
What you're saying is that they don't exist. And if I'm attracted to
Well, no, she's not saying they don't exist. She's saying that they're not what you're saying they are. She's saying that they're not women. That's not erasing them. That's characterizing them differently. You see mansplaining lesbianism at? I don't actually know, to be clear. There's a profile picture here, but it doesn't say who this person is. They're just people calling in. Also, hi, Schwarmer Schwar. Hope you're good.
them, that means I can't be lesbian, right? That doesn't make any sense.
Probably took one semester of Psychology 101. Mate, I've got a fucking A level in psychology from like forever ago. A level is not a very high qualification in the UK, by the way. Like, it's what you get when you're like 18. I know way more than this.
We have to incorporate them. It exists.
You're muting me, Michael.
To fit the new data, we have to understand that they are women. It's that simple. And if you don't want to understand that, fine. Like, you can sit here and say, no, you're wrong. But you're not understanding that there's way more nuance to this issue than just, it's only.
What is a lesbian? Mike, what's a lesbian? Give me the definition of what a homosexual woman is.
Somebody attracted to female typical sex traits.
So not traits, genitals. Same-sex attraction is homosexual.
That's your problem, right? You're not recognizing that.
Well, you're the one that's being homophobic, Michael, telling me I have to be okay with men.
Michael.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He's going to kick her any second now, I bet.
No one's going to tell me that I'm homophobic. I'm sorry.
He's kicked her. Oh my god, what did I just say? Knew it. Fucking knew it. He's kicked her.
That's your problem, right? You're not recognizing that.
Well, you're the one that's being homophobic, Michael, telling me I have to be okay with men.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No one's going to tell me that I'm homophobic.
And aren't these usually the people like, oh, you're afraid of being called a racist or a homophobe, whatever shit? But he's doing the same shit. You don't like being called a homophobe. Should we just admit that it's not nice to bigot shame people, maybe? He got fucking destroyed then.
I'm sorry. Lesbian means attracted to female sex typical traits.
No, it means being attracted to a fellow woman as a woman. That's all it means. You can argue the toss about what a woman is, but ultimately you're a guy. So like, what the fuck would you know anyway? Kicked a gay person because the gay person called him homophobic. Yep. But I bet he readily calls other people homophobic when they say things he doesn't like.
That fits in with what a woman is. That's why trans women fit within that category. And it's not my fault that you don't want to update and learn new information about.
No, they disagree about that new information, and you haven't made a compelling case for it. That's what the problem is.
About the world around you, such that trans women do fit your category.
He's saying that you have to fit trans women into women, but no one has to. It's a matter of perception. Trans is subjective. It's a subjective state. Because no one's born trans. It's something you do at some point in your life. It's something you'll call yourself, something you'll potentially do. But it's subjective as to whether trans women are women or not. Completely subjective.
Of same-sex attraction. I'm sorry, if you don't want to accept it, that's fine. But I am going to accept the new knowledge and new understanding of people around me.
Yeah, as if it's just a fact. Well, this is this now. But it's not a fact. Trans is subjective. You're saying that people should just agree with you. No one has to do anything. That is true. I bet he says homophobe or transphobe 77 times before bed. Yeah, maybe.
See, it's that simple. I'm not here to be the mean guy or the bad guy. I'm just showing you that there are reasons why we have to change our definitions.
You don't have to. And you think that definitions are subjective anyway. You think that definitions is whatever you decide they are. And that words are fuzzy. So why does anyone have to? The guy just reading the script from a Matt Dillahunty show? Probably. Most of them. I mean, this guy came from like atheism TikTok, so he's probably a Dillahunty fan, I would have thought.
To fit new data.
And also, it's much easier to debate when you kick the person, right? Absolutely destroyed. Absolutely fucking mogged. Jacob Rees mogged. That's what happened.